Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm out on my holidays in Cornwall and shooting a sunset this evening for hopefully what's going to work out to be an amazing location. I'm here staying near Porthtowan and between Porthtowan and Porthreath for a couple of weeks, and the weather is supposed to be really fantastic, which is absolutely amazing for your summer holidays, isn't it? Particularly when you're holidaying in the UK, you can never be too sure about the weather, but this couple of weeks looking out really good. So as a landscape photographer, you can't pass up opportunities like this behind me. So let's just see if we can get that working on there instead and focus on that. What an absolute amazing location this is, and will hopefully work out to be a really good shoot this evening. So let's see what I come up with. So I've got it set up for my first composition here, and as you can see I've made it into this little bit of a cave, and what an amazing image this is going to turn out to be, hopefully. So what I've got here is, as you can see, is the camera set up really low onto the tripod, angling up on my 17 to 40mm lens on the 17mm setting, just so I can get the shape, and using this lovely detail of this little cave here as a natural frame for obviously the landscape behind. And absolutely amazing here. It's a location that obviously is near to where I'm staying, and definitely with the conditions tonight, obviously fantastic sunset and a low tide as well, which is just after sunset, which means that obviously I can shoot right up to sunset and not worry about the tide, and also getting around the headland back to where the car's parked, which is obviously always key, isn't it? Don't want to be cut off. But yeah, amazing here. So settings for the camera, I've basically taken 15 images all in total, three different shutter speeds as a base image, just to obviously blend them all together in one exposure or one blended exposure. It wouldn't have actually been able to have achieved it, I don't think, but having obviously all of it is the base image. Obviously first off, focusing on the headland at f16 will work out really quite nicely for the sharpness. Switched over to manual focus, so obviously that's locked in, and then obviously taking the exposures, as I say, one for obviously the land outside of the actual cave itself, and then obviously different exposures as the base image, and then obviously taking those 5 images that I've got set up on the EOS R. So working out really nicely for this first one, blend them all together, stitch it all together in the end, and hopefully will work out really nice. And like I say, with the actual natural framing itself working out really well, but it's certainly a warm evening, and yeah, whew, a little bit of a power walk to get this first composition. Now that's in the bag, can relax a little bit and start to explore some other compositions. So getting ready for my sunset shoot now. As you can see, obviously the camera precariously placed up on this rock is absolutely covered in mussels. So what I'm making sure that I'm doing is placing the legs of the tripod in between the mussels and not disturbing them too much. Luckily enough, where I've got my sort of rock pooling shoes on, my wet shoes, I'm able to scramble up a little bit onto this rock where there's not that many mussels, and obviously placing the tripod up there, which is always got to be key about interfering too much with these ecosystems, haven't you really? So yeah, but about sort of mid-calf depth in water at the moment, but luckily enough the tide is going out and it'll be low tide just after sunset. So sunset is in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes time, give or take. Yeah, wow. And at the moment, dare I say it, it doesn't look like there's any bank of cloud on the horizon, so we might well get an amazing sunset. And also what's happening is in the direction that the sun is setting, behind the sun as such, is obviously the cloud cover. So hopefully after sunset that will light up as well. But back to the image that I've got set up, there's some lovely rocks in the foreground and the water sort of swirling around it, bracketing the image. Base image is 1/10 of a second, f/16, working out really quite nice. Quite like that aperture on this lens and this camera because it gives a little bit of a sunburst, not too much but a little bit. Obviously sharpness wise it'd be absolutely fine. Having the bracketed images as well, again, work out absolutely superb. But yeah, it's well worth coming all this way to capture, if you can possibly see it just behind me, that amazing sunset. So as it starts getting down to the business end of the actual shoot, when the sun is obviously setting in about 5 minutes or so, it's taking multiple images, still with the settings at f/16, 1/10 of a second as the base image, those 5 exposures that it's shooting off. And it's just going to pick whichever one or couple that are going to work out really nicely. Particularly obviously as the waves are crashing over these rocks in the foreground, will work out really lovely. And it's just, as I say, picking out whichever one's going to work out nicely. However, it's just looking at the light meter, and just before you press the shutter, it's checking that you've obviously got the right exposure and maybe adjusting the shutter speed. 1/8 of a second now. And as I say, as that light's going to drop, you're going to extend the base image, but it's obviously going to work out really well. And as I say, this is when you're looking at the sun, and it can be a little bit tricky when you're looking towards it, and obviously then trying to focus on something that's not as bright, and remembering where the buttons are on the camera is always key, isn't it? But again, as you can possibly see, one of the good things about having the EOS R on any Canon camera is obviously the flip out screen. I know quite a few cameras have got them now, but obviously with that screen there, you can obviously angle it and work it obviously to your favour, as I can't obviously get right behind the camera as I was saying earlier. But yeah, this is working out to be a great sunset. At least that was only the cable release and no filters. So moving on to the next image, and broken out the filter set with the 6-stop filter on, the 0.9 soft grad, as well as the CPL. at the same time, just to really make the most of this fantastic sunset. Yeah, 2-minute exposure, hopefully smoothing out some of this lovely water in the foreground and the rocks as well. Yeah, obviously working out really well. The good thing about having the 6-stop, which is a new thing that I've got. Last time I was down in Cornwall, I only had my 10-stop, and yeah, that's great for longer, obviously, exposures. However, you necessarily don't want that, because the base image without the filters on was a second. If I had just had my 10-stop with me, it'd be a 21-minute exposure. Now, yeah, that's okay. However, by that time, the tide will be on the way back in, and yeah, I think I'll be swimming for this composition. So obviously not great when you've got these type of conditions. So yeah, having the 6-stop working out really well. There's some lovely detail in the sky just as the sun has set now, about 10 minutes or so ago, and this is where it pays to obviously stay around for that half hour or so before sunset, and definitely a good half hour or up to after the sun has set itself. But like I said earlier, I need to be cautious about this actual tide at the same time. But let's have a check of that one and see if it works out well. So with the gear all packed up and the sun obviously well and truly set, and as you can see, obviously the light fading, heading back to the car now and back to the cottage. What a amazing location this is, and obviously with all the rocks that are exposed at low tide, working out really interesting. So hopefully the images have come out well. Thanks everyone for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed already. And until next time, from no doubt one of my adventures here along the North Cornwall coast, take care.